We're reading more of The Tragedy X by Ellery Queen. Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. We're at Act 1, Scene 4, Private Room in a Car Barn, Friday, September 4th, 6:40 p.m. The private room on the upper floor of the car barn was a large, bare, dismal place. A continuous bench flanked the four walls. The Longstreet party sat about in varying attitudes of misery and strain, but all were silent. Dr. Schilling, preceding the two interns, bearing the dead man on a stretcher, entered the room immediately behind Inspector Thum and Sergeant Duffy. He commandeered a screen, and the three doctors disappeared with the stretcher behind it. Not the slightest sound interrupted this rite, conducted with the utmost cheerfulness by the medical examiner. The Longstreet party, as if by an unspoken command, thereafter kept their heads turned away from the screen. Softly, Cherry Brown began to cry, leaning against Pollux's trembling shoulder. Inspector Thum clasped muscular hands behind his back and surveyed the party with quiet, almost disinterested speculation. "Now that we're all here in a nice private room," he began pleasantly, "we can have a sane talk about this thing. I know everybody here is upset, but not too upset to answer a couple of questions." They sat like schoolchildren, gazing up at him. "Sergeant," the inspector continued, "you told me that some gentleman here had identified the dead man as Harley Longstreet. Who was that?" Sergeant Duffy pointed to the motionless figure of John DeWitt, sitting beside his wife on the bench. DeWitt stirred. "I see," said Inspector Thum. "Now, sir, suppose you tell me what you began to tell the sergeant in the car. Be sure to get all of this, Jonas," he said to one of a group of detectives as at the door. The man nodded, pencil poised over a notebook. "Now, sir, what's your name?" "John O. DeWitt." Determination, self-assurance had crept into his bearing, into his voice. Inspector Thumb noticed a quick flash of surprise on the faces of several of the party. DeWitt's manner seemed to please them. "The dead man was my business partner. Our firm is DeWitt and Longstreet, brokers, Wall Street." "And who are these ladies and gentlemen?" DeWitt quietly introduced the other members of the party. "Now, what were you all doing on that streetcar?" The frail little man recited in a dry, precise way the facts leading up to the boarding of the 42nd Street crosstown, the engagement party that took place there, Longstreet's invitation to spend the weekend at his home, the departure from the hotel, the sudden storm, the decision to take the car to the ferry. Thumb listened non-committally. As DeWitt concluded, he smiled. "Nicely told, Mr. DeWitt. You saw that peculiar cork of needles I took from Longstreet's pocket in the car. Have you ever seen it before or heard of the existence of such a thing?" DeWitt shook his head. Anyone else here all shook their heads as well. "Very well. Now listen carefully, Mr. DeWitt. Are the following facts true? While you, Longstreet, and the others waited on the corner of 42nd and 8th, under the awning, you showed Longstreet a letter. He put his left hand into his left pocket, extracted his eyeglasses case, took out the glasses, and put his hand into his pocket again to return the case. Did you notice anything happen to his left hand? Did he cry out? Did he pull his hand out fast?" "Not at all," replied DeWitt composedly. "You are apparently attempt to fix the exact period during which the weapon was slipped into his pocket." "Positively not at that time, Inspector." Thumb turned to the others. "Anybody notice anything wrong?" Cherry Brown said in a thin, tearful voice, "Nothing was wrong. I was right beside him, and if he had stuck himself, I would have known it." "Good. Now then, Mr. DeWitt." When Longstreet finished reading the letter, he once more put his hand into his pocket, took out the case, stowed away his glasses, and again, for the fourth time, put his hand into the pocket. On this last occasion to return the case, did he cry out then, or make any sign that he was pricked? "I am willing to swear, Inspector," replied DeWitt, "that he made no outcry or sign of any kind." The others nodded their heads in unanimous agreement. Thumb rocked a little on his heels. "Miss Brown," turning to the actress, "Mr. DeWitt says that immediately after returning the letter, he saw Longstreet and you dash for the car, and that you held your fiancé's left arm from then until you both got into the car and out of the rain. Is that true?" "Yes." She shivered a little. "I was pressed up close to him, hanging on his left arm. He had his left hand in the pocket. We were that way until we were on the rear platform." "Did you see his hand at all on the platform, his left hand?" "Yes. When he took it out of his pocket to look for change in his vest pocket and didn't find any, just after we got on the car. His hand was clear, no pricks on it, no blood." "No. Mr. DeWitt, let me see that letter you showed your partner." DeWitt took from his breast pocket the muddied envelope and handed it to Inspector Thumb. Thumb read the letter. The grievance of a customer named Weber, complaining that he had ordered stock sold at a certain time for a certain price, but that DeWitt and Longstreet had not followed instructions, and that he, Weber, had lost a considerable sum of money as a result. The letter demanded a refund of this loss, claiming that the negligence was the firm's. Thumbs returned the letter to DeWitt without comment. "These facts, then, are substantially correct," he resumed. "In other words, the weapon," went on DeWitt tonelessly, "must have been slipped into Longstreet's pocket while he was on the car." The inspector grinned without humor. "That's it exactly. He had put his hand into his pocket 4 times on the corner as they crossed over to board the car. You yourself saw Miss Brown pressed against Longstreet's left side, and Longstreet's own hand was in that all-important left pocket. If anything was wrong then, both you and Miss Brown would have noticed it in the car. Miss Brown saw his hand, and it was all right. Then the needled cork was not in his pocket before he boarded." Thumb scratched his jaw, ruminating. Then, shaking his head, he strode up and down before the party, questioning each one as to his or her physical position in the vehicle. In relation to Longstreet, he discovered that all were grouped loosely, shifting and swaying with the motion of the car and the restless movements of the passengers. He clamped his lips together, but showed no other sign of disappointment. "Miss Brown, why did Longstreet take out his glasses in the car?" "I think he wanted to read his paper," she replied wearily. DeWitt said Longstreet always consulted the final stock quotations in his late paper on the way to the ferry, and it was when he took out his glasses that he cried out and looked at his hand. Miss Brown asked. Thumb nodded yes. He seemed surprised, annoyed, but nothing more. He began to examine his pocket as if to see what had caused the pricks, but the car lurched badly, and he grabbed for a strap. Then he said he just had scratched himself, but he was pretty groggy, but it seemed to me. But he put on his glasses anyway and read the stock page. He started to open his paper, but he never finished. He collapsed before I could realize what was happening. Inspector Thumb frowned. "Read the stock page on the car every night, eh? Any special reason he might have? Miss Brown to look at his paper tonight, after all. It wasn't the politest thing to do." "Perfectly ridiculous," interrupted DeWitt again, in cold tones. "You don't know or didn't know Longstreet. He'd do anything he pleased. What special reason, as you express it, could he have had?" But Cherry Brown, beneath the traces of tears, was looking thoughtful. "Come to think of it," she said, "there might have been a special reason at that." "Only this afternoon he called for a paper. It wasn't the final. I don't think to see what a certain stock was doing. He might." Thumb clucked encouragingly. "That's the stuff, Miss Brown. And what was the name of the stock, do you know?" "I think it was International Metals." She stole a swift look at the portion of the bench where Michael Collins sat sullenly studying the dirty floor. And Harley said when he saw that International Metals had dropped a lot, Harley said Mr. Collins might need help on short notice. "I see, Collins," the bulky Irishman grunted. Thumb regarded him with curiosity. "So you're in on this party, too? I thought the income tax department kept you busy, Collins. Where do you come in on this deal? Collins bared his teeth. I'm not sure this is any of your business, Thumb, but if you must know, Longstreet advised me to buy in heavy on international metals. He'd been watching the stock for me, and hell, the bottom just dropped out of it today. DeWitt had turned and was regarding Collins with frank surprise. Thumb said quickly, "And did you know about this transaction, Mr. DeWitt?" "Certainly not." DeWitt faced him squarely. "I am astonished to hear that Longstreet advised buying metals. I foresaw its collapse last week, and strongly advised a number of my personal customers against buying in. Collins, when did you first hear about the drop in metals?" "About 1 o'clock today. But look here, DeWitt, what do you mean you didn't know about Longstreet's information? What kind of lousy firm do you run anyway?" "Take it easy," said Inspector Thurm. "Just take it easy, son. Did you speak to Longstreet between 1 o'clock today and the time you saw him at the hotel?" "Yes." Ominously. "Where?" "At the Times Square branch of the firm, early afternoon." Thumb again rocked on his heels. "No words, I suppose?" "Oh, for God's sake," shouted Collins suddenly. "You're barking up the wrong tree, Thumb. What the hell are you trying to do? Pin this thing on me? You haven't answered the question." "Well, no." Cherry Brown screamed. Inspector Thum whirled as if he had been shot, but he saw only the cheerfully fat little figure of Dr. Schilling emerging from behind the screen in his striped shirt sleeves, a brief glimpse of Longstreet's rigid, dead face. "Let's have that thingamajig, that cork, or whatever it is, the boys told me about downstairs," Inspector said Dr. Schilling. Thumb nodded at Sergeant Duffy. Duffy handed the package with an expression of immense relief to the medical examiner, who took it, humming, and disappeared again behind the screen. Cherry Brown was on her feet now, eyes wild and face writhing like a nightmarish Medusa's. Her initial reaction had worn off. The sudden sight of Longstreet's livid clay had brought on a purposeful, somehow cunning hysteria. She brandished her finger at DeWitt, ran forward and clutched his lapels, shrieked into his blanched face, "You killed him! You did it! You hated him! You killed him!" The men had risen pale. Thumb and Duffy sprang forward and pulled the screaming woman away. Throughout, DeWitt stood like stone. The color drained out of Jean DeWitt's face. Her lips tightened, and she advanced tigerishly on the actress. Christopher Lord blocked her path, began to soothe her in a low voice. She sat down again, staring horrified at her father. Imperial and Ahern, with serious faces, took their places at DeWitt's side. Like a guard of honor, Collins sat belligerently in his corner. Pollux was on his feet now, whispering rapidly into Cherry Brown's ear. She calmed gradually, began to cry. Only Mrs. DeWitt had not turned a hair. She surveyed the scene with bright, unblinking, inhuman eyes. Inspector Thumb towered above the quivering woman. "How did you come to say that, Miss Brown? How do you know Mr. DeWitt killed him? Did you see Mr. DeWitt put that cork into Longstreet's coat?" "No." She moaned, shaking from side to side. "Oh, I don't know. I only know he hated Harl. He hated him like poison. Harley told me so dozens of times." Thumb snorted, straightened, and looked hard and significantly at Sergeant Duffy. Duffy gestured to the detective, writing in the notebook. The man opened the door. His partner stepped further into the room, and while Pollux bent over Cherry, solacing with her with some magical... Solacing? I know it means comfort, but it's kind of just weird to see that with the letter E and ing. Words of his own, Inspector Thumb snapped, "Everybody stay right here until I get back," and strode through the open doorway, followed meekly by Jonas, the detective with the notebook.